Hello friends, the domain 2 asset security of CISSP covers total 6 topics, and out of these 6 topics the very first topic is identify and classify information and assets. This particular topic covers how to do data classification and asset classification. As a security professional, we must understand that it is very costly to provide equal security to all the assets in our organization. That's why we need to locate, categorize and differentiate the security approaches to our assets. And to do this, we must first create a inventory of all the assets we are having, where exactly these assets are, who is responsible for those assets, and all this will be covering in the asset management policy. Laws and regulations are the main source of policy in any organization, and some of the common law and regulation which covers classification and categorization of information and assets are Canada Security of Information Act, in China Guarding State Secret Act, in United Kingdom Official Secret Act OSA, in US NIST FIPS 199, and in EU GDPR General Data Protection Regulation. Also in other industry like in healthcare we are having HL7 Information Guidance Release, and HIPAA. In finance we are having PCI DSS. So these are the standards which ask us to do proper classification and categorization of information and asset. As discussed in my last video, that the asset or information classification is done as per the impact of the loss of the asset or information on the organization, and same is called as sensitivity. And the process of assigning a significance level to the confidentiality, integrity and availability of data is called as categorization. Categories can be descriptive such as high, medium and low, and categories and classification can be situational and unique based on organizational factors. So asset classification starts with conducting an inventory of asset and determining the responsible person or owner for that particular asset. Asset contain data or provide information handling capabilities. Example of electronic type of assets are databases, email, storage, media, endpoint computers. Some of these are tangible and some of these are intangible. Like database is an intangible asset. Classifying the asset means categorizing and grouping asset by the level of sensitivity. The level of classification dictate a minimum set of security control the organization will use to protect that particular information or asset. A formal data policy is the primary mechanism through which an organization establishes classification level, and then management can develop controls that provide sufficient protection against specific risk or threats. So we can say asset classification, the first step is inventory of asset. The second step is determining the ownership of those assets. And then the third step is asset categorization and grouping. So we can say asset categorization is a process required in overall asset classification. As per the categorization only, we need to do the classification. And finally, as per the classification, we need to select the security controls to protect that particular asset. Now let's check out what are the benefits of classification. Some of the major benefit of classification is we will have an accurate asset inventory. We also have a in-depth understanding of the environment. Also, we can optimize change, vulnerability and patch management programs of our network. We are able to find what is the best maintenance window for any maintenance activity in our environment. Also, by doing proper classification, we improve the security control and segmentation. With this, the tailored protection of sensitivity data can be done by doing proper classification. Whenever anyone add any new rogue device in our network, we are easily able to identify the same if we have a proper classification in our environment. Also, we are able to pinpoint any new vulnerabilities coming in any IT asset. With proper classification, we can also identify any proprietary asset and the intellectual property and provide necessary security controls to them. We can forecast the cost of protection in our environment. Also, we can comply and we can check and verify about all the compliance and regulatory controls for our environment. Now let's understand how to assess the asset value. Because to do classification and categorization, we want the asset value. Depending on the same, we need to take the decision for the classification and categorization. So we have two techniques, qualitative and quantitative asset value analysis with us. In quantitative approach, we use objective measure and provide a numerical value. The numerical value can be in the form of a currency, percentage and a specific number. And the qualitative approach is based on the subjective judgment from the assessor and organizational decision makers. These assessment gives value in the terms like high, medium and low. The process is equivalent to the journal risk management equation we use in information risk calculations. The value of the asset is dependent on the likelihood that a vulnerability will be exploited multiplied by the severity of the impact. So under quantitative analysis, we must know some terms and equations like annual loss expectancy ALE, SLE, single loss expectancy, annual rate of occurrence ARO, asset value, exposure factor, safeguard value, right? And also we need to understand some formulas, like to calculate ALE we need to multiply the SLE, single loss expectancy, multiplied by the annual rate of occurrence, and then the single loss expectancy is equals to asset value multiplied by the exposure factor. Now the third formula is related to the safeguard value, which is about the difference between the annual loss of expectancy before and after implementation of the controls, and finally we need to subtract the annual cost of the countermeasures from that value. Now let's understand the advantages and disadvantages of quantitative and qualitative analysis. It is quantitative analysis, it is more objective and uses real number for comparison. It is credible and meaningful, and also it is very easy to understand. So, and the third advantage is aligned with the financial consideration and tailored for cost benefit analysis. The disadvantages for quantitative analysis is it is very complex. Also, it requires intensive calculations. It also provides a false sense of accuracy or precision. Measures and formulas can be miscalculated, so the results are not trusted. Now let's understand the advantages and disadvantages of qualitative approach. So qualitative approach is simple to measure and also very easy to explain. They also convey a necessary measure to identify the problem. But the disadvantages of qualitative approaches are they are more subjective and depend on the experience and judgment of the analyst. Also, the asset can be over or under assessed in this particular category. Also, the recommendations are very subjective. It is very hard to track the progress in qualitative approach. Now let's understand about the asset classification level. Assets should be identified and controlled based on their level of sensitivity. So this allows us to group together all the similar assets and provide them a level of security. Like all the servers in production environment can be grouped together and put it into the tier 1, so that all the systems which are tier 1 are very critical to our environment and we provide maximum security to them, right? And then comes the servers which are related to the QA environment, so we will put them in tier 2. And then comes the systems which we use for development environment, so we will put them in tier 3. So we can provide minimum level of security to the systems which are in the tier 3. The evaluation criteria for the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 can include the types of the data the assets handle, the processes the assets accomplish, or both. There is no mandatory formula or nomenclature for asset classification categories. Each organization will have to establish their own names and sensitivity levels. Like I have used here tier 1. So in your organization, you can use some other name also for that particular purpose. So we can say the tier 1 means they are very essential to the business unit. They handle data that is extremely sensitive. Their compromise could have a critical impact on the business ability of the function. Also, they are required to be 100% on the time. And the systems which can be covered in tier 0 is domain controllers, databases, email servers, file servers, client web servers, gateway networks like firewall, router, network critical infrastructure, and anything that shuts down the business. So with this, I can say that this is all required in the topic identify and classify information asset of domain 2 of CISSP. With this, thank you friends.